My brothers and sisters in Christ, those who live in glass houses should not cast stones. That old expression sums up today's readings very well. And in mind, of course, you're probably noticing I'm decked out in my Astros gear here. Go Astros. This video is being recorded on Tuesday evening. And so the Astros have just clinched the American League Division Series, moving on to face the Red Sox in the American League Championship Series. But this very aspect that's captured in the readings, the topic of hypocrisy, but also our blind judgment. And I bring up on the Astros theme, a situation that's very silly. In the grand scheme of things, it's irrelevant. But in the last 24 hours after that the Astros had gone up 2-0 in the series, and of course those who follow baseball in any way know the great scandal that happened a couple years ago after the Astros was revealed. The Astros, illicit sign stealing scheme they used in 2017 that's brought them a lot of hatred from different corners and punishment. And so it's followed them around. And the sad thing always with the scandal was the Astros didn't need any of that to win games. They were good enough on their own. And right now they've been showing it. They've been hitting a lot. So the Astros had gone up big in this series. And then finally the White Sox back in Chicago on Sunday night finally won a big game. And one of their pitchers made remarks that were probably not wise to make. About the fact that the Astros only beat them before because they must be up to something bad. Well, then, of course, in the game that happened today, and this is talking about Tuesday, the game that happened today, that pitcher got beat. The Astros kind of bashed the Chicago's brains in offensively to win the series. But all the players were asked about it. And they pointed out, all the stuff he was accusing of, the White Sox looked more suspicious of, and not that they were accusing them of anything, but just saying it was a stupid accusation, a stupid judgment to make. The reason I bring this up is not the baseball of any of it. As I said, this was a silly thing. It should have never been a story to start with, but it perfectly epitomizes this glass houses idea and the damage through hypocrisy of our judgment. And sometimes our judgment is both through our pride and blindness, and sometimes it's just from our hastiness, if you will, our rash judgment in the heat of moment. We judge people, we look for the worst in everyone, especially those whom we're already biased to dislike or distrust because of whatever reason. And yet, the scriptures call us to humility, to self-observation first. First of all, to always be rooted in the fact that I myself am a sinner first. And so, lest I ever be on a high horse over someone else, I first look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm a sinner. And so before I point a finger at someone else and say, you rotten sinner, realize I'm a rotten sinner too. We're all rotten sinners. We're saved by God's grace. And so, the humility that Jesus invites us to is to not make the rash judgment. The Pharisees in the gospel point out are constantly nitpicking everything Jesus does, and he points out that while they claim the high and mighty observance of the law, they're completely devoid of charity or honoring of God. St. Paul in the letter to the Romans is pointing out this same judgment of how do we make judgments against other people of the very things that we are guilty of ourselves. And we do it all the time in everything. And so, all of this is a way of saying, especially in today's world where we're always rapid in reaction to something on the news, to something we hear about politicians, to this and that, we're just rapid in our judgments, quick to throw stones when we ourselves live in glass houses. We need to slow down, and we need to learn to always first assume the best of everyone, not the worst. The virtue is to not assume the worst, to not start from a biased place of guilt, but to assume, unless there's evidence the other way, assume, even if someone does something wrong, assume they had a good intention. Not that it makes anything okay, but we need to learn to think the best of people and not the worst. When we make rash judgment, we undermine any of our sense of Christian witness. First of all, because we ourselves become hypocrites. And second of all, because we look foolish. We look like people who have no judgment. We don't embody any of the mercy of Jesus Christ, the love that makes the gospel compelling. And so, may we learn to take a pause, to think twice before we speak or even think the judgments we want to throw at our neighbor. First, realize that I myself have fallen way short of the glory of God and have only the mercy of Jesus to thank for the fact that I am not condemned to the worst fate of all, and may I in turn show the same judgment or the same merciful judgment to my neighbor. May God bless you.